fortunate to have Donnie Piercey here with us today.
Hello.
Donnie Piercey. I'm going to let him tell you all that he does and what he teaches. But Donnie is actually, I don't know your role at Google Geo Group, so maybe you can share some of the work you've done through there. He knows all the secrets. I didn't tell you that part, did I? I was going to share that. He's not allowed to share all the secrets, but sometimes he knows all the stuff before we all do, so he's in the know. Plus, he's had some amazing adventures with National Geographic, so you have to share some of this. I'm going to make him his walks with the penguins and things like that. So, Donnie, please tell us where you're from, what you teach. I didn't tell them what you teach. So.
Well, I feel like before I do that, Lisa, I should tell them tons of secrets about you that I know. Maybe that'd be a fun place to start. But
well, we've gone on some interesting road trips.
Right. Oh, Nebraska. But anyway, kind of before I get started, so truth be told, I teach in Lexington, Kentucky. I teach 5th grade, but I'm also kind of the school's technology kind of integrator. So kind of in that role, it's kind of my job, K to 12, to kind of figure out unique ways that teachers can use, we're a Chromebook district, so usually Google Apps and stuff, creative ways that they can integrate those tools kind of into the classroom. So okay, you have shrunk down to a tiny little pictures there, but, probably most of you, it looks like a lot of you have kind of been in education for a while. You probably remember Google Earth. Maybe you remember a long time ago if you were a classroom teacher, when Google Earth came out with those Earth tours, we all kind of got that idea of, Google, it's a fascinating tool. A lot of times when people think of Google Earth, they think of like, oh, where's my house, right? And that's always the first thing that kids want to show you when they think of Google Earth. Or when they see Google Earth for the first time, truth be told, like it used to drive me nuts because I'm like, it looks the same as when you left the house this morning. Like you don't need to here. But then I started to realize that, again, I'm an elementary school teacher, so I'm coming across this from a different point of view. But for a lot of my students, when they see and can find their house, now you're totally Googling me right now, but, when they see and find their house for the first time, for a lot of them, that's when they start to make that connection that, if that's a real place that I just found on this device that maybe for the past 7 years I looked at it as a tool, right? And so if I can find my house on there and that's a real place, what other real locations have we studied, in all of my classes that I could then go and learn more about? It might be, if you're reading Shakespeare in 9th grade, it might be going and looking, see where Verona is today and pulling that up on the search button. Or it might be something as simple as if you're, got a setting in a book where you're trying to figure out, I don't know, maybe you're a math teacher and you're trying to figure out the dimensions of a football field. Well, you could go and use like the draw line tool. Is there a question or is that a school announcement?
Yeah.
School radio.
Okay. My screen still being shared?
Not now, no.
Okay, it cut me off there for a second. So I'm going to kind of here and go back. Is my screen back? Okay, there you go. All right. So anyway, but, and that was all well and good for Google Earth for a while, but, teachers, when the new Google Earth rolled out, which is now on the web, it's no longer a separate downloadable program, teachers like, well, that's really cool, but, I don't just want my kids looking at stuff all the time. Like, I actually want them to start to create. So what the Google Earth Education team did, we put together, think of it as like a storytelling canvas, right? And so about 4 months ago, here on the left, which that should be zooming in on your end, they added this little button that says project. And, for a while, this was in beta test for about a year and a half, and it's gone through a ton of changes. But these are collaborative projects that use the Earth as kind of its canvas, that your students, even their teachers, can create for lecture tools, that frankly, make things a lot more visual. And the nice part about these, here, I'll just load up one. I teach social studies, so we study the causes of the American Revolution. So this is one that I made as a model for my class. We were studying, okay, what are the reasons why the United States went to war with Great Britain? And so, when you go ahead and when you're putting together a Google Earth project, all of these exist in Google Drive. And, kind of the big benefit of using Google Drive is that it's collaborative. You can have up to 50 people working on these projects at the same time. And so if you wanted to add a point or if you wanted to add a feature, right, it's actually really easy to do. You click the little button here that says New Feature. So maybe we're studying about the olive branch petition. I don't know how many of you all are social studies. Or you know that was something that left the United States that was sent to Parliament to try to plead, please don't start a war. So you can add to a Google Earth project. You can either add a specific location by adding a place mark or just searching for it. You can even draw a line or add a shape to it. You'll see, like on this map that I have here, I've drawn some lines showing where the proclamation line of 1760 was, where the forbidden land was. But you can also add polygons and stuff to it, or even full screen slides. So I'm just going to search to add a place to kind of show you how you can add these locations to projects. I'll just search for like Independence Hall, simple example. Just let you know. So you see it gives you like suggestions, right? So I know that's on Chestnut Street in Philadelphia, not in Ohio. I don't know if you all can see the text, but you just click the one that you want. It'll fly you into that location, right? And you'll want to know, okay, is this the location that you would like to add to the store? And if it is, over here on the right, in this little text box that pops up, there's a little button that says Add to Project. You click the Add to Project button. You choose what you want to title the place mark that pops up. And the nice part is, too, you can have dozens of projects going at once. So you can actually choose to have you can choose which one you want to add it to. In this case, it's the Causes of the American Revolution one. And then you can either save it and then move on to the next location. I know you guys are like techie people, so we can kind of get a little bit geeky with this. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah.
So you can press the Edit Place button. And this is where, it can really turn into a storytelling tool. Because you can think of it as like what Google Earth is showing you right now. This is like a camera that's pointed directly above Independence Hall. Well, I kind of want to bedazzle this a little bit. I want it to be a little bit more visual, and I really want this, my students to kind of see where this location is. So over here, it tells me first off that on that little knowledge card that pops up, the information that's provided on there is provided by Google. Well, I kind of want to add my own text that pops up, so I can click that button. And then down in here is where I can start to add my own text. I can type it up. I could be silly and say, here's where, hashtag America started. I can do whatever you want with that there. But you can also add hyperlinks. You can change the font. And you can get super geeky. And again, we're kind of running a little short on time. But you can also switch into some HTML. And you can embed Google Slideshows directly on there. You can even embed Google Forms directly on there. So as part of your tour, or as part of your project, you can have students take quizzes along the way. You can put YouTube videos on there for them to see. You can customize it as much as you want. But after you add those, let me go ahead and open this up again. As you start to add locations to each project, they appear here on the left. And I'm going to customize this one a little bit more. So I'm going to press the Edit Feature button. And I want to add, let me switch back to the template there. I'm going to add some imagery. So right here, there's the Add Image button. You can click that. And this is just like maybe, I don't know if you've ever used like Tour Creator before, or if you're uploading, this would just be like if you're uploading an image to a Google Doc. I can either select an image that's saved on my computer. Think if a student goes somewhere and they take some photos on their phone of like, maybe they went to Paris, maybe they went to, I don't know, Disneyland and rode the new Rise of Resistance ride. And they kind of wanted to show where they were. They could upload those images individually. You can also search Google directly. So like if I wanted to search for, I don't know, this is risky, but I'll search Marca. We'll see what pops up. I don't know what's going to pop up. This could be risky. Oh, that's bad. But anyway, so you can press select. And sometimes the image type doesn't, it doesn't match up right. That's why it's usually.
That's touchy Wi-Fi, right?
Yeah, right. I'm actually hotspotting my phone right now, so don't. Anyway. But you can pull up images from your computer. You can upload them. What I personally like is you can add photos to Google Photo album. If you have photos that are saved on your Google Drive, or if you can search YouTube directly for either YouTube videos that you've uploaded, or you can just search YouTube. So if I wanted to search, there's too late to apologize. If there's a video that I wanted to add, there you go. Press select. Then that video becomes like an interactive part of it. But before I get to, you can customize each location. So what I'm going to do, right, is I'm going to scroll down here a little more. The info box is what appears in the top right-hand corner of each thing. I'm going to keep it as a small list right now, but if I wanted it to, I could make it where it was just a large one, but we'll keep it as small for now. You can even customize the color of those place marks. You'll see it's kind of changing right there. You can even change it where it's like a extra large one that kind of sticks up, like Marca, right? And you can even customize what these ones look like. And they really have, if I click on see more icons, they have a couple hundred icons that you can choose from. Again, you got a geeky crowd, so you can even go into show advanced options. You can choose to show or hide the label text. So if you just want it to be a place mark and not have it say Independence Hall next to it, you can do that. You can even make it where it's a gigantic label that says Independence Hall. And you can even choose how high you want that place mark to hover above the ground. I don't know if you can see it through it, but right now it's set at 0 meters. But if this was like a building and I knew that the building was 300 meters tall and I wanted the place mark to be floating directly above that building, I can search for, I'll just change this to 20 meters and press enter. And I want it where it's relative to the ground. In other words, if there's a mountain or something there, it's going to put it 20 meters above the top of that mountain. But here's the thing. Independence Hall looks kind of boring when you look at it straight from the top. So I'm going to come down here, and there's a button that says Set View Manually. I can type in these numbers if I want, if you know the tilt, of the camera to be like 45-degree tangent to the ground or something. But a fun little pro tip, if you hold down, let me zoom out here. If you hold down Shift and then click, you can actually start to pan around, right? And you can kind of drag it to the ground. And again, my old MacBook that I'm on here is really laggy. But I'm going to tilt it a little bit so we can kind of get directly, and we should be able to get it facing directly at it. There you go. And then once you kind of get the angle that you want, there's a button right here that says Capture This View. And then when you click that, it kind of adjusts the heading, the tilt for you. In other words, when you play this story that you put together, when I get to that place mark, the camera will fly around and look directly at that. So like if you're doing, I don't know, a thing of like all the schools in your district, and you don't want it where it's looking directly from the top, instead it's tilted, maybe a little bit more interactive from the side, you can do it that way. But anyway, so if you ever, those are kind of the projects. As you make them, they kind of save in Google Drive. Again, just to give you another example of a student project that I have my students do each year, you know, I have them work on or create a scale model of the solar system. And so what I have them do, right, is I have them pick a spot in our town. I live in Lexington, Kentucky. I have them pick a spot. I tell them to find like a park or a street or whatever. Pick an object to be their sun. And then they actually have to go to that park. And then if their object for the sun is, say, a beach ball, well, then they have to convert, okay, well, if the sun's the size of a beach ball, what would be the size of Mercury and how many feet away from the sun would it be? They actually go there. I can press present just so I can show you the kind of finished product here. And then when you play a project, it's just like a slideshow, right? Except instead of you going to the next slide, it goes to different locations on planet Earth. So, here this is Jack. He took this from, put in his source right there. But, when I press play, this is a video that Jack uploaded to YouTube, right?
This is my son. It is 18 inches in diameter.
I don't know if you can hear that, but he said this is the sun. It's 18 inches in diameter. And then I can move on to, he has some other images up there, just in case you don't know what a beach ball looks like. But I can close that out. And then I can go to the next location, right, which would be Mercury, which in this case, it was like Capricorn. So you can keep clicking through it. You'll see he's kind of added some fun little camera shots there. But again, this is something that he put together because it's collaborative. All he had to do was just share this project with me. And then when he shared it with me, I could open it up and see it. Does that make sense? It's just be the same as like, if a student type the Google Doc, you can share it and you can click on it. You can even, make one and share it with your class. Maybe have like a collaborative project. But anyway, so.
We have a question.
Yeah.
This is a question. So I use Google Classroom. Can you post a link and submit it like on Google Classroom, or do you have to share it?
Yeah. So, the way that Google Classroom works, I'll kind of, again, that was a student from last year. This year, the projects that they make, you have to make the Google Earth project public, right? Which that's the same as like making a Google Doc public, or anybody in the district can view, right? Because ours is set where students can't share outside of the district. They can only share it, they can make it public within the district. But once they have that link, they can just attach, I'll try to find the one. Just do that thing where like you pretend you don't see my student names here in a minute. But sorry, I'm kind of traveling back in time here. The American Revolution. Sorry, trying to find where it was. There it is. So anyway, like this is that Causes of the American Revolution assignment I told you about. So we put slideshows together, gave them all those resources, and then the assignment said, and pretend like you don't see student names there. It just says using the attached slideshows, I had added one additional one a day. Create a Google Earth project that visually shows the different causes of it. This place is location specific, like Boston, drop a place mark. And I gave them some just specific instructions for what each place mark had to include. Once that was done, again, pretend like you don't see student names here, but, once that was done, these two students right here, this is a student who's a pretend student, and I added my daughter because she's in district, because you know how in Google Classroom there's no view at student button, and it's really annoying? So I just added my daughter as a student, pull up her account and say, here's how you turn this in. Pro tip. But anyway, so then what the students did was they just went and added the link to their project, and then all I had to do was just click on it to open it up, right? Does that make sense? So then, like, if I go over here, the link's right there. I can click on it, and it would open up the student's project, right? It'd be the same as, there's an open with Google Earth button right there that can pop it up that way. That's actually new. That wasn't there like 2 weeks ago. So there you go. More you know. But anyway, so that's kind of how I went about using it with Google Classroom. Ideally, like I've protested the Google Earth team, like if you, I'd love to figure out a way to attach a template. You know what I mean? To attach a template and then have students add on to something. But right now, the easiest way to do it, because it's really not too hard to make, is just have students make one from scratch and then share it with you and then add a link to it onto the assignment. That way, it's easy to go about to grading it. Any other questions? The project, it's pretty simple. And the first time that you open up Google Earth, it's exactly, originally I was going to make some tutorial videos, but the first time that you open it up, like they've made a project that's a walkthrough about how to make a project. So it's got videos where it shows you, here's how you add a place mark, here's how you add a polygon, here's how you adjust the view. And, my fifth graders, who this year are not the most tech savvy in the world, they watched it and they're like, oh, that's pretty easy. And they really just figured it on their own. So, it's definitely not something that's super complicated.
We attached your YouTube page to the agenda today, so.
Okay, yeah.
You got a ton of tutorials in there.
Yeah, fun with it. Are you on a swivel cam? Is that why it keeps looking around at you?
It's a telepresence system that zooms in, that's why.
Oh, that's kind of creepy, but all right. Okay, anyway.
Hey, Donnie, I have a question for you.
Yes.
We've been talking a lot about Google Earth, and we've shared a whole bunch of tools this morning. Is there a reason now, Google's been kind of migrating from Tour Builder and My Maps, and there's kind of different things that are all, the capabilities are now found in Google Earth. Is there a reason why I would still want to use My Maps or still want to use Tour Builder?
So, again, I can't tell you too much. I can say that the stuff in My Maps looks an awful lot like the stuff in Google Earth, doesn't it? So, I don't know, maybe they're kind of melding them together into one. The one thing that you can't do with Google Earth projects yet is there's no way to embed it on a Google site. But if you make a My Map, you can embed that My Map onto a site. So that's kind of the difference right now. If you're going on a field trip and you want to put a site together that shows you the locations that they're going to see, do it on a My Map because you can embed it directly on there. But if you want something that's a little bit more immersive, maybe directly below that My Map, insert a link to your Google Earth project because anybody can click on it and open it up. And the Google Earth projects, you can also open those up. There's do your students have iPads?
Chromebooks.
Yeah, or I'm getting, some of you, but probably a lot of your students have their own devices. If you ever want to be brave and mind the pun, but leave your students to their own devices, those, I'm trying to show you here. Probably should have been connecting this here, but there's a Google Earth app that you can't create the projects on it yet, but they can go ahead and load it up directly on their own devices too. And it's actually super slick because they can pinch to zoom. They can use 2 fingers to kind of tilt the camera down a little bit. So, honestly, when students share projects with me, a lot of times I'll just open it up on my phone. I'll have my grading in front of me, and I'll just kind of go through this way and add my feedback and comments through Google Classroom on my device. So, the web-based version the mobile-based version of the app, it's pretty slick. I actually you just can't make anything on it yet. Other questions?
We had a question earlier about historical maps. I know there used to be a lot of stuff in the computer-based Google Earth.
So historical imagery, right, used to be kind of one of the cool things in classic Google Earth. And hang on, let me screen share here for a second. All right, you should be able to see my screen here now. Yeah. So the historical imagery where you could go back and look 20 years ago. Hang on, let me close out this project here, make that go away. Right now, that's not in the new Google Earth, at least not yet. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But one thing that Google Earth does have, right, it has these things called voyages, which if I click on Voyager, right, these are like, oh, sorry, it's loading really slow, but these are content created by Google or other companies like National Geographic or whatever that are meant to be like, might be the story about where an artist was born. It might be something about, did it cut my screen again?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, it keeps cutting it out there. Let me try that one more time. All right, so, these voyages, when you click on this thing, it looks like a pirate ship wheel. It might be like underwater street view. It might be a quiz over ancient civilization. But they do have one that if you've played around with the voyages before, you can actually search for voyages. So if you click the little magnifying glass here, there you go. If you search for, I'm trying to remember what it was called. I think it's the Rumsey maps, where if you search for it, here you go. Down here at the bottom, it'll show you locations up the top, but down at the bottom, it'll show you Voyager stories. There's about 800 of them right now, and there's the historical maps from Dave Rumsey. And if you click those, this is kind of the people seem to like these. It'll pull up this Google Earth voyage that has about 300 historical maps. That what it does is it overlays them directly on top of Google Earth. So if you wanted to pull up a map of what people thought the world looked like in 1587, you can click that one. Then give it a second here. There we go. So then it will load on top of Google Earth, this map that then becomes a little bit interactive, right? So you could show if they wanted to see what didn't they know exists? You could jump down to Antarctica. Let's see, that was kind of stretched out a little bit. You can also kind of jump back and kind of go here. But they have, if you've never had a chance to view some of the historical tabs, they have it sorted. So there's like an education one. The most popular one, by the way, there's one that's called The Day the Dinosaurs Died, which that one, that website's not working, buddy. Sorry, my son just hit the website and I'm a little concerned at the moment. Cool game. There you go. Now you got it. Anyway, but these voyages, they're clickable and they're also shareable too, because they're links that go directly into Google Classroom. So, while you can't necessarily customize them, if you find one that okay, this ties directly into my content, you could attach that as a resource in Google Classroom. Students could use it in a project together. Any other questions about kind of Google Earth? All right. I'll tell you what, I know, Lisa, I know a lot of you. Does anybody have their Google certification like level 1 or level 2? Anybody kind of gone that route?
Yeah, some people. Mm-hmm.
A few badges, okay.
Yeah.
So I know just National Geographic about 4 years ago, they started what's called their Educator Certification Program. And what this Educator Certification Program is, it's a course that really anybody can go through. I don't know what you were playing for, buddy, so you're going to have to make your best guess. Okay, I got 5 more minutes. You can do it, buddy. I believe in you. But anyway, so they actually put together an educator certification course that you can kind of go through to earn a National Geographic kind of badge. The course is great because it's all inquiry-based learning. And have a whole technology component that goes along with it too. It's definitely not like with the Google certification where you kind of just take the test and congratulations, you're a National Geographic educator. It's pretty hefty, And they actually do it cohort-based, but there's no fee that goes along with it. National Geographic, they don't charge anything. So, one thing that if you're kind of looking to send some teachers, if they're trying to figure out if you got some science teachers, I definitely encourage you to have them check out the National Geographic certification. One thing that I did kind of with this, they actually have a fellowship. It's called the Grosvenor Teacher Fellowship. And as part of that, I was invited to kind of travel to Antarctica last year. So, of course, like I put my it's like, it really is just millions of penguin photos. Lisa, I can send you this link if anybody really wants to look.
I'd like to talk about how cold you were.
Yeah, it was very cold, and I don't know if this will load because the internet's really slow, but I shamelessly, I like Star Wars. I think it's cool, but I shamelessly, found an augmented reality Star Wars program and put up the AT. Hang on, wait for it. Yeah, why not? So I put in there talking some. But anyway, so, the Grosvenor Teacher Fellowship, it's definitely something which I'd recommend. Because what I did with it, the whole point behind the fellowship is not to just go and bring a 360-degree camera and, upload those images to Google Maps and Google Earth so you end up getting more views than Scott. Instead, the whole point behind the fellowship is to go to unique places with National Geographic explorers to not only to go, but to then take the experience back to your classroom, right? Because when you're down there, you're actually in contact with, those people who write for National Geographic that you're like, hey, how did you get that job? I wish that I could bring you into my classroom every day. And I realized that there would be about 10 explorers that were on the ship with us. And so what I ended up doing, just before I went, I had all of my students. I went and I had them record on my phone just a question. Hey, if you could ask a question about Antarctica to an expert, somebody who kind of does this thing for a living, what would the question be? And some of them were really deep. There are questions about hey, what can we in Kentucky do about climate change? What effects of it are you seeing down there? And others of them were, hey, what does penguin poop smell like, right? But what I ended up doing with it, right? Are you guys familiar with Flipgrid?
Yes.
All right. So what I ended up doing was when they uploaded all of those videos to Flipgrid. And then when I was down there is internet, right? Which sounds really strange. It's just, do you remember the 14.4 dial-up internet, like AOL? It's just very, very, very slow. So what I did was I uploaded my students' questions to Flipgrid. And then I had the explorers watch their videos and then reply directly to them. And they addressed the students by name. Hank, I don't know why that's not working. I don't know why that's not working. You're going to have to wait. I don't know. Just wait 2 minutes. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. You got it. Sorry, his birthday was yesterday, and we were up late playing with a remote control BB-8 that we got. But anyway, so what I ended up doing, let me kind of jump here just to kind of show you what this one way, if you ever get a chance to travel somewhere. Hang on, I got to travel back in time now and figure out where I put it. There it was. So, when I was down there, I had all my students, let me kind of jump here and remember how to get to it. Is, they uploaded these questions, and then these National Geographic explorers, they addressed my students by name. And they're like, wow, Hudson, that's a great question. Let me kind of answer that for you. Of course, I have fifth graders. If your class uses Flipgrid, they probably did the exact same thing that mine did here. Well, there's Hudson, like Hudson, right?
Hello, and my first question is, why do penguins live in the South Pole and polar bears live in the North Pole? my second question is, how do icebergs form?
Right. So, they actually had on board like a glaciologist who writes for Nat Geo.
Hey Hudson, you wrote a great question.
Right. And so they actually went, answered the question for him, and, the day when I got back, these students, as part of, this experience, they actually got to hear these experts calling them by name, saying, great question. And for a lot of my students, like, it was one of those moments where it really connected the continent, a place where, I still can't believe I had the opportunity to go. But it gave them the chance to kind of see what it was like. And it, connected them to a larger world. One other thing that I did, are any of you all familiar with Creator?
Both creator.
Tour
Yeah.
creator.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so Tour Creator, it's how you've probably seen the Google Expeditions, right, the virtual reality tour. Tour Creator is where you can go and you can make your own Google Expedition. So what I ended up doing when I was down there, I kind of took the images that I made, I published them to Tour Creator, and then that puts it directly on a link that when you load up the Google Expedition app, it'll actually appear on there, and you can send it to your students in virtual reality. But you can also just pull it up on the web. You can attach it as a link in Google Classroom. You can even attach overlays like images and pictures that you took. I just added some text. That way students would know where stuff was. And because it's super cute and I can do it, I also figured out that you can upload custom images. So I added my Bitmoji on there, because just thought it was fun.
That's fun.
Yeah, but, Tour Creator, it's designed to be an interactive virtual experience. And, you can upload your own images with Tour Creator, but you can also search for any Street View image. So if it's on Google Maps, you can add it on here. And if you've never had a chance to play around with it, again, I've got a parent conference that's showing up here in a couple of minutes, but if you've never had a chance to play around with Tour Creator, it's super simple. It's literally you just search for a location, add it, and then you can publish it, share it with your class, and really make it interactive. All right. Lisa, was that what you wanted? I think it was.
That was awesome.